Welcome, everyone. My name is Sarah Ostman, and I'm the Communications Manager in the American Library Association's Public Programs Office. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Science Cafés, Bringing STEM Experts to Your Community. Before I turn the mic over to the presenters, I have a few quick announcements. Today's webinar is made possible with support from ALA's Cultural Communities Fund. To learn more or support the Cultural Communities Fund, visit ala.org/ccf. As you may know, ALA's Public Programs Office offers grants to help libraries fill their role as community cultural centers. Right now we have several opportunities available. Applications are being accepted through September 15th for the Great Stories Club, a reading and discussion program funded by the National Endowment for the Humanities. The Great Stories Club gives at-risk youth the opportunity to read, reflect, and share ideas on topics that resonate with them. The awards are available to libraries of all types that are located within or working in partnership with organizations that serve at-risk young adults. That includes alternative high schools, juvenile justice organizations, homeless shelters, and teen parenting programs. We are also accepting applications through September 18th for Explore Earth, Explore Tech, and Explore Space. Public libraries are invited to host one of these three interactive 200-square-foot STEM traveling exhibitions. 200 square feet is significantly smaller than many of our traveling exhibitions, so this is great for small spaces. This opportunity is offered in collaboration with the Space Science Institute's National Center for Interactive Learning, the Lunar and Planetary Institute, and the After School Alliance. You can learn more about these offerings and stay up to date on upcoming offerings at programminglibrarian.org. Just click on About, and then click Current Grant Opportunities. A few quick notes about our online classroom today. If you look toward the bottom of your screen, you will see a list of related documents. Feel free to download these. These are materials that the presenters provided for us, but you don't need to print them out for today's presentation. If you have questions while our presenters are speaking, feel free to type them in the chat box. We will do our best to respond to questions as we go along, but if your question isn't answered during the presentation, we will come back to it during the Q&A session at the end. This session is being recorded, and the archived recording will be made available later today. And finally, if you experience any technical problems at any point during this session, please send a private message to Samantha Oakley. To do that, you just hover over Samantha's name at the top of the attendees list under Hosts, and then select Start Private Chat. Now I would like to introduce our presenters. Karen Newrohr is a professor and the Community Outreach and Assessment Librarian for Oklahoma State University Library, who has more than 18 years' experience coordinating educational programs in libraries. She started the Science Cafés program at OSU in 2012, and since then she has organized 18 campus science cafes with a total of 35 speakers and an average attendance of 81. This year, OSU's Science Café programming was selected to receive ALA's Excellence in Library Programming Award. Tracy Engler is Associate Professor and the Reference Librarian for Science and Technology at the University of Southern Mississippi. She is the recipient of several grants focusing on science and technology, and is the creator and coordinator of the successful Science Café open to the community and the university. She is a member of the NOVA Science Café Advisory Board and serves as a community editor for the Star Library Education Network, also known as StarNet. We are going to start with Tracy first, and then we're going to start with Karen first, and then hear from Tracy, followed by time for questions. So with that, I'll turn it over to Karen.
Thank you, Sarah. The Oklahoma State University Library is greatly honored to receive this award. We were recognized for a series of community and campus programs we did on hydraulic fracturing and the implications of the oil and gas industry. In Oklahoma, this industry is highly important to the state's economy. However, Oklahoma is experiencing a surge in earthquakes. The Oklahoma Geological Survey reports the magnitude of 3 or greater earthquakes has increased from about 1.5 a year to 2.5 each day. Just yesterday, Oklahoma had a 4.5 magnitude earthquake, which we felt in Stillwater. Scientific research is showing a correlation of the earthquakes to some processes of the hydraulic fracturing, specifically the injection and disposal of wastewater into disposal wells. In 2014, we had 6 Science Café programs related to this topic. 5 programs were held at Stillwater Public Library. All of these programs would not have been possible without the library's partners and sponsors. My presentation today covers Science Café campus and community programming. Science Café at OSU helps fulfill the library and university missions. Oklahoma State University is a multi-campus, public, land-grant educational system that improves the lives of people in Oklahoma, the nation, and the world through integrated, high-quality teaching, research, and outreach. OSU is fully classified as a community-engaged institution from the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching. Science Café programs also help the Stillwater Public Library fulfill its mission of transforming lives through the power of information. Although I don't have a science background, I have more than 18 years of experience in arts and humanities public programming, which helped me see the exciting possibilities for Science Café. I learned about Science Cafés by chance at the ALA annual conference in 2011. At a vendor luncheon, I met Tracy Englert, my co-presenter, and I asked her, "So, what is one cool thing you are doing at your library?" She described Science Cafés. I loved the idea, and so did OSU Library Dean Sheila Johnson. I invited the officers of the OSU chapter of the Sigma Xi Scientific Research Society to form a Science Café partnership with the OSU Library. The officers actively participate in program planning and execution, and this partnership continues to sustain the project. Next, I sought seed money from the OSU Vice President of Research Office, who continues to provide annual funding to support advertising and refreshments. Science Café at OSU was launched in October 2012. I believe that library programming must have an articulated purpose statement, and this is ours. OSU Science Café is a monthly event that highlights interesting, relevant, and current science-related research. The events are an opportunity to participate in lively and engaging conversations about science. Science Café features a brief presentation followed by discussion and questions. This event is free and open to the public. No science background is assumed or required. An articulated purpose statement such as this helps influence audience expectations and helps determine how we measure success of programs. Here are 2 examples of program flyers. We use a template for the program flyers, and we always include the purpose statement. This is the program format we generally follow. The format, however, is not set in stone, and we do modify it from time to time. Science Café programs start at 6:30 p.m. and usually end around 8. We always have coffee, tea, water, and a dessert. Our refreshment cost is between $60 and $70 per program. A one-page overview of Science Café is provided to speakers when they are first invited and again as the program date draws near. We have found 2 speakers to be ideal, but we have had up to 4 speakers. A scientist in Indonesia even Skyped in to one Science Café we held on climate change. It helps to be flexible because sometimes we get surprises. Occasionally, a speaker has brought along a colleague to speak that we didn't know was coming. When this has happened, we work it in. This slide and the next one show the Peggy V. Helmrich browsing room in the OSU library where we have Science Cafés. This large room serves several purposes for the library. When it isn't being used for programs and events, it provides study space for students. For Science Café, we have changed the seating arrangement from lecture style with rows, which evokes a sense of formality, as in this picture, to round tables to encourage more audience interaction with each other. This shows 3 years of some Science Café data I collect. Yes, we did have 2 eagles in the library. That was a first. Here are a couple more program flyers. The conservation program on the left was offered during Native American Heritage Month. The evolution program on the right had the 3rd highest attendance to date. And here are 2 more flyers. The NASA Mars program was held during Research Week and featured a scientist from Oklahoma who had an amazing career in the space industry. The psychology program captivated the audience. OSU has around 500 student organizations. Being strategic, we have started inviting select organizations to be program partners. For example, for the space program, we reached out to women engineering students, the Astronomy Club, and 6 other organizations. In exchange for including the organization's name on the flyer, they help publicize the program for us. It's a win-win for everyone. I send the officers and advisors an email message and flyer that they can easily forward to their group. We also give special recognition to these partners at the program. This takes a little more time to organize, but it's worth the effort because it helps ensure that those who might have a special interest in a topic or speaker know about the program. Every person who attends Science Café receives an evaluation form. The average return rate for evaluations is 58%. We do wish it were higher. This shows the evaluation result for advertising. I have 3 email distribution lists with several hundred names. At each cafe, people can sign a form if they want to be on the email list to hear about future programs. They only receive 2 emails from me, one about 1.5 weeks before the program and again the day before the program. I only use these email lists for Science Café. Undergraduate students are the target audience for campus programs, but the programs also attract graduate students, faculty, staff, and community members. In fact, we have been pleasantly surprised with the number of both current and retired faculty members who attend programs. They have communicated their appreciation to us, and some have indicated these events have re-energized their research efforts. One investigator said the programs remind her of why she became a scientist in the first place. Remember the purpose statement? It specifically lists engaging the audience, and for the evaluations we do get back, the numbers show we are achieving audience engagement. Now I'll turn to our community programming. Science Café was designed as a campus program. In April 2014, we offered a program over hydraulic fracturing, which attracted a record audience of 155. The room was packed. The program lasted much longer than normal. Word had spread through social media in the community, and we even had people attend from surrounding towns 20 or more miles away. It was clear from the audience questions, their passion for the topic, and the evaluation results that more information was needed. We listened. With the program speakers, we formed a new interdisciplinary team, the OSU Hydraulic Fracturing Education and Communications Team, and designed a spin-off community series for Stillwater Public Library. The OSU Library has a history of collaborative programming with Stillwater Public Library. They have great people, facilities, and parking, which is often a challenge on campus. The team set up a series of 4 programs. The first 3 programs each were designed with 2 speakers. The 4th program, a forum, deviated a bit from the usual format. Our community wanted to hear from agency representatives. This flyer doesn't list the forum speakers because we didn't even have all of the speakers committed until after the series began. We evaluated the community programs differently from campus programs and asked these types of questions. Because we were doing a series, we had multiple opportunities to answer audience questions. I created a LibGuide with program information, and I posted resource links and Q&A from week to week. We also began each program by offering answers to written questions from the previous week. The audience could see that we were listening to them and trying to find answers for them. A unique aspect of the evaluation was that instead of just one open-ended comment box, we had 3 which were labeled as comments, suggestions, or questions. This gave us better feedback that we used to improve programs and also meet the community's need for information. Here is an example showing the results for how we measured change in knowledge. So we had check boxes, and the statement was, "I understand," and then we had 3 statements. And participants could check either they strongly agreed or disagreed before or after. It was how they felt before and how they felt afterward. As I said, we didn't have all of the forum speakers identified when the series first began. When we announced the speakers at Program 3, there was an audible gasp from the audience. We were bringing in some speakers that they had been telling us they wanted to hear from. We articulated and displayed this information about the forums at the forums so the audience understood the purpose and format. We had learned from the previous programs that we needed more structure for audience questions. So this shows the forum purpose and the format and how we were going to handle the questions and answers. Communication with forum speakers is critical. We were asking speakers to drive 60 or more miles one way to an evening program. We were open with them about what to expect, how the program would be organized, how questions would be handled, and we gave them a sense of the audience and their concerns before they came to the program. Here is an example showing some response choices and results for how the audience plans to use the information. Community interest in this topic continued due to the earthquakes and pending changes in city and state legislation. Requests for additional programming led to a 6th program at Stillwater Public Library in November. We had another forum consisting of 2 OSU scientists, a scientist from the Oklahoma Geological Survey, and a local legislator. They provided research and legislative updates and information about citizen science. This shows a Science Café forum at the Stillwater Public Library auditorium. These are the programs that have had. This shows an overview of 3 years of Science Café campus and community programming. These are the programs that have had the highest attendance. The top program led to the community series, and the fifth highest attendance was for one of the community programs. Interestingly, 3 of these programs occurred after we began inviting student organizations as partners. Door prizes add a fun element to campus programs. We hand out tickets for door prizes at every campus cafe. Because OSU students are the target audience, they each get 2 tickets. Everyone else gets 1. Nova Science Now was able to provide a few giveaway items that first year. After that, we rounded up conference swag to use as giveaways, but what we really wanted were branded coffee mugs. We always have coffee at Science Café. In 2014, 2 emeritus professors who attended and enjoyed some cafes generously provided a donation so we could purchase these great mugs. We use them as thank you gifts for speakers, and we also give some away at each program. These coffee mugs are popular. Science Cafés truly are a team effort. The library, sponsors, and partners are critical for the success of these programs. These last 2 slides show links to information. Please feel free to contact me if you have questions. And now I will turn the program over to Tracy Englert.
Thanks, Karen. At the University of Southern Mississippi, I am at Hattiesburg campus, and we also have 2 other Science Cafe series at our other teaching sites in Long Beach, Mississippi, and in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. But today I'm going to talk about what's happening in Hattiesburg and opportunities that I've taken advantage of utilizing my role as an informal science educator. So as I said, the University of Southern Mississippi, Hattiesburg, overall we have around 16,000 enrollment, and we are classified by the Carnegie Foundation as a research university with high research activity. The Science Cafe programming series began in 2010 after being awarded a Science Cafe grant from Nova Science Now. And as you see, we started the cafe in the library's Starbucks. So it was certainly a lot of fun to start out. And for the first couple of years, the Starbucks even offered half-price cafe specials. We then moved to the front of the library in our museum gallery space. We've since moved again, all within the library. And since 2010, we've had over 30 faculty members, graduate students, present their research to an audience of over 1,000 members of the public. Some of the topics are listed here, and as you see, we've had a wide perspective, everything from one of my personal favorites, the medieval stained glass, where I had the chair of the history department at the time, a medievalist, talk with a local stained glass artist about medieval stained glass, to life on Mars, several about time travel. That's a very hot topic. And then over on the right, you see all the different areas and departments from the university that have done a Science Cafe. So you don't always have to think about the hard sciences. You can have a wide range from your university. In 2013, our cafe was selected by Nova Education to be one of 40 innovation cafes. This took place with the highly successful Making Stuff broadcast, so the second series of that. And Nova furnished the cute little t-shirt that you see the guy wearing and coasters. So that was a wonderful experience. And in fact, this cafe was even featured in Mississippi's Point Innovation magazine. So that's a great part about the cafes. They really help give your researchers exposure, that demonstration of knowledge, and also it gets the word out about your library and your institution. When I worked with my innovation cohort, the other people putting on the innovation cafes, some of them mentioned the NISE network, the Nanoscale Informal Science Education Network. And just so that you know what nanoscale, so very, very small things. A nanoscale would be 1 nanometer would be a billionth of a meter. Very, very small thing. And that's what the NISE network tries to do, to help foster that public awareness, engagement, and understanding of nanoscale science, engineering, and technology. Because there's a lot of fear and anxiety about these type of technology, emerging technology, and this is a way that you can help foster that understanding to a broader audience. So it really does tie nicely with what libraries try to do. So I joined this group and applied and was accepted twice for the NanoDays kit. And NanoDays is a national festival and celebration of all things nano. And the kit was wonderful. It was this huge box that came with everything that you need. And I mean everything, even the tablecloths. Everything for 100 visitors, your staff, your volunteer training, everything. And unfortunately, 2015 was the last year of the funded NanoDay kit. Here's some pictures of some of the different NanoDays at Cook Library, our 2014 and 2015, and those took place in March. And here you see us at the reference desk with our NanoDays banner and some of the different scientists that helped put this on. And let's see. And then here's another slide of some of the different activities that we had during our NanoDay Festival. Now, I do have some really good news. Several new project opportunities are happening with NISE Network for existing and new partners to engage the public in current science topics. For example, building with biology, activities and conversations about synthetic biology. That's one of the opportunities you can apply for an outreach kit, get the materials, and help do this wonderful outreach activity. And for more information, you can look at the NISE.net NanoBite newsletter, and I've got a link there. And they've got several other ones as well. NISE.net has been wonderful, wonderful for me. They accepted me. I was one of 7 chosen to go to a Sharing Science workshop and practicum at the Museum of Science in Boston. And that was just a terrific immersive workshop. I got to work with students from MIT and Harvard and University of Boston and help them with communicate their science to a broader audience. So after we went through this workshop, we had a practicum experience where we were set up on the floor of the Museum of Science in Boston, and we got to work with visitors, and I got to do hands-on interpretation on the floor. So, wow, who would have thought a librarian doing that? If you're interested in having one of these sharing science workshops and practicums, the guide is available. It's free. I've got a link there to the NISE catalog, and it's a very vetted, wonderful workshop that you can provide for your researchers to help them with their science communication skills. I was also awarded the NICE Network Mini Grant. This was with the University Libraries, the School of Library and Information Science, and the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry. So we were awarded $3,000 mini grant to do a nanoscience-based outreach program for non-science teachers and librarians. A lot of times, outreach is usually geared more towards science teachers, but the librarian, people involved with helping the scientists, sometimes they need a little bit of help too, and this is an underserved audience that we helped do this program to, and it was very successful. I was also invited to the NISE network-wide meeting, and there I helped present a panel and also do a poster, and I've got the little arrow over my head. This was a great experience. I think there may have been a few other librarians there, but mostly it was all museum professionals, and it was a great experience to get to meet those guys. When I came back from the NISE meeting, I then had the opportunity to help our local public library, the Hattiesburg Public Library, for their STEAM summer reading program, do a nanotechnology component. And there's the flyer for the Every Hero Has a Story. Public libraries all around the nation were doing that theme. And then the one that we did a STEAM program. If you're not familiar with STEAM, STEAM is science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And it's funny, when I was at the NICE meeting, a lot of the different museums were talking about partnering with the local public libraries and doing nano kits. So we all were kind of on the same wavelength. So I helped facilitate this event with two of my faculty members from chemistry and the Center for Teaching Mathematics and Science. And this is, the center helps pre-service teachers or teachers who are getting their master's in science and mathematics education. And we also had several graduate and even high school students help. And there we are. And as the caption says, it was wild and crazy and fun. And I went ahead and provided 2 slides of 2 of the kits that we did. And I do want to say that they had told us to expect around 200 kids from 9 to 12 that day. And by 11 o'clock, we had well over 200 kids, and we ran out of everything. It was very popular. And one of the activities was exploring materials, thin films, and that's where your patrons create a bookmark, and they use a super thin layer of clear nail polish, And then that way they learned that the thin film creates those rainbow colors. So in your driveway where you've seen a kind of an old slick and it's got that pretty rainbow color, kind of the same thing. And it is a bit of a messy program, but the kids really enjoy it. And then that picture on the left is my chemistry faculty member kind of mugging it up for the camera. A lot of fun. The other activity was exploring materials stained glass. Again, kind of a labor-intensive activity because you do have a lot of the cutting of the contact paper, the tissue paper, but the kids love it. And this is where they create kind of a stained glass window with tissue paper, and they learn that real stained glass windows use gold nanoparticles to create some of the colors in the glass. So it's something they can take home with them and learn a little bit. It's a lot of fun. And you see us there with all the different scissors and paper. Now, kind of segueing into a few things that I've done and things that you may want to look at doing. The American Association for the Advancement of Science for several years has sponsored up to 30 librarians annually covering the meeting registration. They also have a librarian session during the meeting. This is a wonderful meeting for you to go to if you've never gone. This can also increase your visibility among scientists as a colleague, potential collaborators for scientific literacy, research, and education. And actually, I received sponsored registration for the 2015 annual meeting in San Jose, and that had the theme Innovations, Information, and Imaging. So I put a couple of the slides from the meeting, and one of the things over on the left is something that most librarians are very familiar with, where you go and you meet authors and you have pictures with them and book signings and book talks. So yes, they do have that at scientific meetings. And that's a picture of me. In the middle is a picture when I went on the Science of Wine. So they did a winery tour where you could go up and learn all about the historic wine crops. So that's that picture. And then over on the right is a picture of me holding Neil Schumann, the author, the best-selling author, and also the PBS series Your Inner Fish. This is the cast of the fossil, the link between the fish and land animals, so the missing link. So that was a lot of fun. You really learn a lot. It's hot topics, what's really going out there in science. And for the 2016 annual meeting next year in Washington, the AAAS Publisher Relations, who publishes science, will again sponsor meeting registration. And you can even look at doing a poster session. The call for the sponsored registration is usually sent out on the ACRL Science and Technology section listserv. Another wonderful resource is the Center for Advancement of Informal Science Education, CASE. So this works with NSF. It's a wonderful resource, lots and lots about informal STEAM education, a whole community. And I captured the little screenshot of libraries as an environment for informal STEAM learning and funding opportunities, all kinds of stuff. So check it out. Finally, look at some of the different associations that your faculty may be members of. For example, the American Chemical Society has Science Café mini grants that the student chapters can apply for. and you could help partner with them and have that. So that would be, a real win-win. Finally, we talked a little bit at the front about StarNet, and again, the STAR Library Education Network, a national program led by the Space Science Institute's National Center for Interactive Learning. And they mentioned one of the opportunities for public libraries to apply to host one of the traveling exhibits. And I really encourage you to, if you are a public library, to apply. That looks like a wonderful opportunity to take advantage of. And also, I am one of the community editors for StarNet's online community, and we post blogs and all kinds of different resources. Okay, and that's it.
Thank you so much, Karen and Tracy. That was so much good information. We have some time now for questions, so if you do have questions, I see some people are already typing. Just put those in the chat box, and I will throw them out there for our presenters to answer. In the meantime, I will ask us a question to get us started, and that is, how do you both find Science Cafe topics and speakers? Could you talk a little more about that?
Yes, I can start with that. Of course, we're fortunate to be at a university where we have a lot of scientists here, but every state has a land-grant university, and part of the mission of land-grant universities is extension. So those county extension agents that every county has can probably help you find some Science Cafe speakers, or they might be willing to do programs themselves. I also would say that you can check with your area science teachers. We are starting to record and put our Science Cafes online, and anybody can tap into those. So if you couldn't get somebody to come to your library, you could still hold Science Cafes by showing some of the O-State TV videos and then having discussions about what people see. Or you could look at Nova Science Now YouTube videos and show those, and you could build programs around themes by using those types of resources.
And what I like to do is I look at the National Science Foundation, National NIH, and see who has received funding, who's received an award. A lot of times, if they've received an award, they have an obligation for public dissemination, and so I can help them out, they can help me out.
Great. Mallory asked a question, and Tiffany said never mind, but I think we should ask it anyway, because we have a lot of public librarians with us today. Can you talk a little bit more about advice you would give specifically for public librarians? And I know, Karen, you just touched on that with using the NOVA series, etc. But do you have any more specific advice for public libraries?
Yeah, I think, I think somebody who has a passion for this and who loves to see magic happen with educational programming is a good person to coordinate this. You need a coordinator that has an interest in the success of this type of programming. Tracy was a great example of showing how she's tapping in and involved in science programming with children and young people. There's a lot of retired people out there that would be interested in coming to these types of programs. You can focus on issues of interest to different demographics of people. You could think about maybe medical doctors or nurses, or if you have community colleges. I think really the sky's the limit here. Once you start thinking about it and start contacting people and building relationships, you may be surprised how much you can come up with as far as programming.
And I'd like to mention you could always contact the university around you. their external funding or sponsored research, they may have faculty that need to find these type of public outlets, and you could work with them.
And I'll add on to that, look for the librarians at the colleges and universities. If it's a large college or university, they probably have a librarian like Tracy that is tapped into the scientists on her campus, and she knows them, and that's your good starting contact point for the colleges and universities. Start with the library.
Wendy just asked a question about considering high school science teachers. Do you have any experience with that?
I have had high school science teachers start coming to the Science Cafes, and they're on my distribution list. We haven't advertised to the schools for the campus programs because, as you could see from the slides, our room gets pretty full. But I think certainly if you're going to start some public programming, then yes, absolutely see about working with your science teachers and promoting those programs to their students.
And I agree. And I have worked with our Center for Teaching Mathematics and Science, where it's high school science teachers who are getting their masters in teaching science, and I advertise to their list. Sometimes they want to see if they can get CEU credits and things for some of the stuff, and I haven't really looked at that, but we were able to offer 1 CEU credit for the Children Book Festival that we presented the outreach program to.
Laura asked a question about advertising. She said, did you ask how attendees found out about your Science Cafes? And if so, what was the most effective way to advertise?
Yes, that is a question on all the evaluation forms that we use. The most effective way were the email lists. People found out about it through email. Now, that could be two things. It could be the lists that I've created that people can opt into, but also the faculty on my email list. I know that some of them are forwarding those emails out to their students and encouraging their students to come. Faculty and professors were the second highest way that people heard about Science Cafes. And then we also do an on-campus signboard, which we actually have to pay a little bit of money for. But those are all around campus, and they're big blown-up posters. So it's actually our flyer that's blown up. And so that was one of our top ways that people are hearing about Science Cafes on campus, too. The local newspaper did great coverage for our Science Cafes on hydraulic fracturing. They were doing front page stories for every cafe that we held last year. And so press releases were sent out to area newspapers for the Science Cafes.
Deanne had a question that is a good one about the name Science Cafe. Do you know if anyone can use that term, Science Cafe, or do you need to go about getting permission?
As far as I know, anybody can use that term.
Yes, that's what my understanding is. You can put your Science Cafe on the Science Cafe map with the Nova Science, but I wouldn't see why you couldn't use the name.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tracy, because we are on the Nova Science Now website. They have a map of the United States, and they show Science Cafes in every state. And we're also on the Sigma Xi Scientific Research Society list, showing that we have Science Cafes in Oklahoma. One of the things you'll see when you start looking at some of the resources about how to organize Science Cafes, and there's a lot of good information out there, is that it seems like a number of those cafes and what they tell you to do, they're organized to hold the cafes in bars or in coffee shops. And I struggled a bit at first trying to figure out where to have the cafes on campus. I thought, well, we need to, look at area restaurants or, places on campus. And I really did explore different different things, but ultimately it made the most sense to have them here in the library. We had the space for it, and it's just a whole lot easier for me as the coordinator to have that and be able to do sound checks and things like that before the program.
Great. Christina asked a question, which I know you both have touched on, but maybe you could elaborate a little. And looks like Christina's from a rural public library, so maybe that could inform your answer. She said, is there an organization that can help us get started with STEM programming?
Well, I would say take a look at the Nova Science Now website. They talk about how to organize science cafes. They give you a lot of good information. Some of the other websites that Tracy and I both mentioned also have information about science programming. Tracy, you had a lot of great websites that you talked about with information. I love some of those nanotech ideas and everything. I was trying to make notes as you were talking too.
Yeah, certainly the Science Cafe Nova website, on the list of resources I provided, if you look at the American Chemical Society, they have a whole little Science Cafe toolkit. There's also on the list of resources even, I believe, a grant that you can apply for if you want to start a teen Science Cafe, and then that resource has a lot of, I think they can really help you get that started.
Looks like we have one more question coming in. In the meantime, I'll just say there were a couple of questions about accessing the slides from today's presentation. We will email those out. We will email a link so you can download those to everyone who registered for today's presentation. You can also access the slides and the archived recording at programminglibrarian.org. If you just go to the main Programming Librarian site and click on Learning, you will find today's session, and we'll update that shortly with the recording from today. Roxanne says she's interested in forming a community of practice for librarians interested or involved in science communication. Do you know of any groups like that, Karen or Tracy?
I don't in particular, but if there's something that I can do to help get anything like that started, I would be glad to.
Yes, I'd like to work with Roxanne and Karen on that.
Great. If you'd like to share your email addresses in the chat box, you can feel free, or otherwise connect with one another. And another question, where can we find the information about the Teen Science Cafe grant that you mentioned? I think, Tracy, that was you.
Yes, that's on the list of the Science Cafe resources.
Great. So under related documents at the bottom of your screen. I think that looks like our questions are winding down. I want to thank both of you so much. This was such a great presentation. Thank you all for attending today. And please visit programminglibrarian.org for upcoming webinars like this one. A lot of email addresses going in the chat box. Exciting to see that everybody's going to be connecting.
Can we get a list of those from you?
Sure. Yeah, I'll pull that together.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.